were caught. They took them to prison. They arrested them. They started shooting at them, and these African missionaries are after them till this morning.
Okay, Rama, now forgive me if you've gone through this before. It's quite a poor line, but it's still very early in the morning in Tripoli. What kind of numbers of people are there out there on the streets?
Right now, I can't say. I'm not outside, but people are in the streets. The government is not actually letting people in the streets. They're arresting them as soon as they see any anti-government movement. Whoever's in the street are just pro-government. Nobody is outside right now.
Okay, Rama, thank you very much for your time. That was a lady who just wants to be known as Rama. She lives in the Libyan capital, Tripoli, describing some of the scenes that she's been seeing over there. Well, Fathi Terbil is a lawyer and a key organizer of the protests in Libya. He was arrested last Wednesday, but later released. He also represents victims of a 1996 prison massacre in Libya. Earlier, he spoke to AlJazeera over the internet from the city of Benghazi.
رددها المتظاهرون فلعل صعوبة الصوت قد يحول بيننا وبين توصيل كثير من المعلومات ولكن أقول
The audio is muffled because they're not allowing our voices to be heard, so I apologize in advance. What happened today in Benghazi is a massacre against the truth. It is a massacre in the full sense of the word. All kinds of weapons are being used against the civilian population. They are firing at people indiscriminately, using civilian cars without license plates to roam the streets and shoot at the people. There are dozens, maybe even hundreds of people who have been killed today. Yesterday, I was at the Jala hospital to look at the dead bodies and found that most of those killed were shot to the head and chest and in the eyes. The extreme violence used is clear and can be seen on the bodies. It was a frightening sight. People here are living under very tough circumstances. Traffic is impossible to drive through because gunfire being shot by security forces and militias loyal to Gaddafi is adding to the chaos. I cannot even describe the situation to you. The youth are falling dead everywhere. Even for those hiding behind walls, sniper fire can reach them. Eyewitnesses are saying that innocent people are being targeted without having done anything wrong. It feels like an open war zone between protesters and the security forces. And there are mercenaries wearing yellow construction helmets who are attacking people from inside their homes. Our statistics say that more than 200 people have been killed, and there are 700 to 900 injured, at least 30% of whom are in critical condition and could die soon. May God have mercy on them.
Well, earlier we also spoke to a resident in the western city of Nalut. He says protests have spread there too.
A major protest is taking place now, and clashes have erupted between the residents and the security forces. Cars belonging to the security and intelligence people are seen roaming around. May God have mercy on us. You can hear live gunfire. The situation in Nalut is as follows. Last night, a group of people went out on the street, though the young people were afraid, and there were threats that an army brigade nearby, about 30 kilometers away, will storm the town if we rose up. But tonight, the young people came out in force. We can now see security forces on the streets. They are trying to clash with the youth, and they are shooting at them with live ammunition. 2 government buildings and posters of Gaddafi have been burned down, even his so-called Green Book. As you can hear, the protests are ongoing. We are trying to speak to the security forces because they are part of the people and we want them to support us. They are now burning the cars. We would like to salute our people in Benghazi. They have led the way in this uprising. They have been the spark. We apologize for not supporting them much earlier than now. We are sorry.
Mufti Al-Tayer is with a group called the National Conference of the Libyan Opposition. He says we shouldn't be asking if Gaddafi is using mercenaries to crush protests, but why?
Gaddafi have been training and arming from north and south, east and west, people who thinks that he can buy and he can then later on employ to face his own people. My point in this, by the way, is that why Gaddafi is doing this, why Gaddafi is not using his forces, why he's using mercenaries. Gaddafi is doing that because he knows very well that he cannot and do not trust the Libyan army and the Libyan people. They are not going to shoot their own people. That's why he are using mercenary, and he should be ashamed of himself.
In Bahrain, the main labor union has called for a national strike on Sunday, part of ongoing protests there against the government. Earlier, thousands of people returned to Pearl Roundabout, the centre of those demonstrations, and the scene of two separate attacks last week by security forces. But police and soldiers have now left the area. The government says talks with opposition groups are underway, but as James Bays reports from Manama, many protesters say they won't be taking part.
The Pearl Roundabout, the place that's become a symbol of protest in Bahrain, back in the hands of thousands of people. This had for a time become a closed military zone, the place where soldiers had fired live rounds, rubber bullets and tear gas at protesters. When the army were pulled out, it looked as if the riot police would stand firm. As the protesters gathered again, the authorities blocked the routes with barbed wire. An officer tried to address the crowd, but he was drowned out by the chanting. Suddenly, the police line began to move. They'd received new orders and got into their vehicles, starting to drive away. The crowd took their chance. The last policemen were chased off by protesters, armed only with flowers. There was nothing to stop the rush to the Pearl Roundabout, and the crowd began celebrating.
After the massacre that has occurred here, the Pearl Roundabout holds a very big symbol to all Bahraini peoples over here. It reminds them, it gives them hope for victory.
The army and police have withdrawn. Thousands of people are back at this roundabout. The government may believe they've made concessions which set the stage for talks, but it's clear many of these people don't want to negotiate.
We reject all negotiations because of the blood, what happened here, scattered everywhere. There are a lot of people dead, and we are asking for moving this country, for this government. They don't love their people. Forever, forever, and forever, we will stay here. We will stay here forever, because it's our country.
The protesters are back at the Pearl, but this country's problems are a long way from being solved. The violence of the last few days has only increased the determination of many here to change this country forever. James Bays, AlJazeera, Bahrain.
As those